Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So today we are reading from the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 14, titled Ideal Family Life, text 38. Is that right? 38? Okay. Teshva eva Bhagavan Rajams Taratamyena vartate Tasmat patram hi purusho Yavan atma yate yate Teshva eva Bhagavan Rajams Taratamyena vartate Tasmat patram hi purusho Yavan atma yate yate Teshva eva Bhagavan Rajams Taratamyena vartate Tasmat patram hi purusho Yavan atma yate yate. Taratamyena vartate Tasmat patram hi purusho Yavan atma yate yate. Yena vartate Purusho Yavan atma yate yate. Shva eva Bhagavan Rajams Taratamyena vartate Tasmat patram hi purusho Yavan atma yate yate. Matajis. Ishvaya Bhagavan Rajan Taratamyena vartate. Teshu, among the different types of bodies, demigod, human, animal, bird, etc. Eva, indeed, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his Paramatma feature. Rajan, O King, Taratamyena, comparatively, more or less, Vartate, is situated. Tasmat, therefore, Patram, the Supreme Person, He, indeed, Purushaha, Paramatma, Yavan, as far as, Atma, the degree of understanding, Yatha, development of austerity and penance, Iyate, is manifest. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O King Yudhisthira, the Supersoul in every body gives intelligence to the individual soul according to his capacity for understanding. Therefore, the Supersoul is the chief within the body. The Supersoul is manifested to the individual soul according to the individual soul's comparative development of knowledge, austerity, penance, and so on. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, text 15, it is said, Matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in his localized aspect gives intelligence to the individual soul as far as he is able to grasp it. Therefore, we find the individual soul in different high and low positions. A living entity with the body of a bird or beast cannot take instructions from the Supreme Soul as adequately as an advanced human being. Thus, there are gradations of bodily forms. In human society, the perfect Brahmana is supposed to be the most advanced in spiritual consciousness, and further advanced in the Brahmana is the Vaishnava. Therefore, the best persons are the Vaishnavas and Vishnu. When charity is to be given, one should take instruction from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, text 20. Datyavyamiti yadjnanam diyate anupakarine deshe kale cha patre cha tadhanam satvikam smritam. That gift which is given out of duty at the proper time and place to a worthy person and without expectation of return is considered to be charity in the mode of goodness. One should give charity to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, for thus the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be worshipped. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya comments, Brahmadi sthavaranteshu na vishesho hare kachit vyaktimatra visheshena taratamyam vadanti cha. Beginning from Brahma down to the ant, everyone is conducted by the Super Soul. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati. But because of a particular person's advancement in spiritual consciousness, he is considered to be important. Therefore, the Brahmana Vaishnava is important, and above all, the Super Soul, the personality of Godhead, is the most important personality. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Canto 7, Chapter 4, text 38, in the matter of ideal family life. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtham Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaurakata Damadaya Nagra Gramatarine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam bhangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham bande Shri Gurudintarinam yatkripatamaham bande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana smrite yasmin dushkaram zukaram bhavet vismrite vipritam syat Shri Chaitanyam namamitam. So, in this canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in this specific chapter, ideal family life, there is, as we may have seen previously, there is a whole set of instructions how to lead an ideal family life. So here, this is not a discontinuous verse from the rest of the chapter. Rather, we may think, what is the connection between this particular verse and the chapter titled Ideal Family Life in all the previous verses that we read. So, here it is explained that the super soul in every body gives intelligence to the individual soul according to his capacity for understanding. So whether it is the non-devotees or it is the devotees, in either case, it is the super soul which gives direction. But here Prabhupada makes this point that the super soul, here in this particular purport, Prabhupada says there are gradations of human form, bodily forms. In human society, the perfect Brahmana is supposed to be the most advanced in Krishna spiritual consciousness, and further advanced in the Brahmanas is the Vaishnava. Therefore, the best persons are the Vaishnavas and and Vishnu. Why they are considered the best persons, Vaishnavas and Vishnu? Because what does the Vaishnava do? Vaishnava completely follows the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a manner so that he pleases the Supreme Lord. Whereas other living entities, they also receive direction from the Supreme Lord, but for their own sense gratification. But Vaishnavas, especially, Vaishnavas, I should say, they're not interested in just pleasing the Lord, because pleasure of the Lord is not bhakti. Just like when Krishna, he went to, of course, pleasure of the Lord is bhakti, but that is not the full definition of bhakti. Because if you notice that when Krishna went to Mathura, and when he was fighting with the wrestlers, so he received blows from the wrestlers, and Krishna was enjoying that fight. So he was getting pleasure out of that fight. Is that bhakti? No. But Acharya has explained that pleasure of Krishna alone is not bhakti, but the manner in which it is being rendered, in a favorable manner, that's bhakti. So, and of course, pure bhakti is anyabhilashita shunyam. Just favorable alone is not enough. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanam. That is pure bhakti. So, Vaishnavas are interested in pure bhakti, which means their only interest in life is to receive directions from Krishna in a manner to please him favorably with Anyabhilashata shunyam and jnana karmadi anavritam. Therefore, they are considered the best. So, then the question may come up, how do we receive instructions from the Supersoul? That's a very important question, because sometimes people think that conscience, in the material world at least, there is this concept called conscience. And I think all of us have some intrinsic sense of it. Conscience, they say, is the voice of God, prompting you from within, telling you what to do and what not to do. However, according to our Krishna conscious philosophy, conscience is not the voice of God. Because conscience is the voice of God, yes, but the voice of God according to our conditioning. Yes, ultimately it is the voice of God, but the voice of God according to our conditioning is called conscience. For example, somebody may have been raised in a meat-eating family. So, to such a person, if you say vegetarianism is good, he may hear it, he or she may hear it. The next time the person eats meat, there is no conscience which is telling the person this is wrong. Of course, if you are a pure devotee and you speak strongly, it may have some impact and may purify the heart. But I'm just talking generally. Let's say a non-devotee tells that person that vegetarianism is good. No big deal. So the conscience of that person will not dictate to the person that eating meat is wrong. So that's why conscience is not the voice of, it is the voice of Supersoul, but it's the voice of Supersoul according to our conditioning. So when it speaks about the voice of the Supersoul for the devotees, it means the voice of the Supersoul which is favorable for the execution of our pure devotional service. And unless we are on the fully purified platform, we are not going to be sure what is the voice of the Supreme Personality of what is the voice of the Super Soul and what is the voice of our conscience. So let me just read one purport from the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, titled Cosmic Manifestation, chapter 2, titled The Lord in the Heart. This is text 36. I'm not going to read the entire purport, but I'll just read a small section of it. I think I didn't. Okay, text 36. Okay. So, what do the Vaishnavas do? The Bhakti Yoga process is practiced by devotees in different methods, like hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshipping, praying, rendering service in love, becoming friendly, and offering all that one may possess. All 9 methods are bona fide methods, and either all of them, some of them, and even one of them can bring about the desired result for the sincere devotee. But out of all the 9 different methods, the first one, namely hearing, is the most important function in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Without hearing sufficiently and properly, no one can make any progress by any of the methods of practice. And for hearing only, all the Vedic literatures are there, compiled by authorized persons like Vyasadeva, who is the powerful incarnation of Godhead. And since it has been ascertained that the Lord is the super soul of everything, He should therefore be heard and glorified everywhere and always. That is the special duty of the human being. When the human being, okay, this is very important, that Prabhupada is mentioning, there's a little more in the purport, I'll just come to that a little later. So Prabhupada is mentioning here that of all the processes of Bhakti Yoga, hearing is the most important function. So what does that translate? That specifically translates for us, members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that for us, the most important thing is to read Prabhupada's books. Now there may be an immediate question. What about chanting the holy names? This is the Yuga Dharma. And so are we just changing the process to something else? No. In order to practice the Yuga Dharma properly, as Prabhupada mentions, hearing is the most important function. Because the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is not just done by the members of the Krishna consciousness movement. It is also done by a lot of the Sahajiyas. So that therefore, Prabhupada is stressing on this point, that hearing is the most important of all the functions of Bhakti Yoga. And why is hearing important? Because hearing is, Prabhupada says, hearing is what when we hear, our intelligence is directed properly. And Prabhupada writes in the earlier purport to 235 that intelligence is the form direction of the Supersoul. And so when we hear, then we become enthusiastic to follow. So everything begins, so as Prabhupada mentions here, that without hearing sufficiently and properly, no one can make any progress by any of the methods of practice. Because especially Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes that some people think that if we go to Govardhan or maybe to Vrindavan, to a secluded place, and just chant the holy names 24 hours of the day, even if one is doing that, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur makes it a point that it's still cheating, he says. Why? Because after a while, one begins to think of women and money. Therefore, the recommended process, especially by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he stressed it. He told Prabhupada, if you ever get money, print books. So, the importance of reading is because it provides the enthusiasm. And out of the all elements of devotional, all devotional elements that are required for proper execution, Rupa Goswami in his Nectar of Instruction, he begins with Utsahan. And it's very interesting how Prabhupada translates or how Prabhupada defines the word Utsaha. Prabhupada does not translate Utsaha as endeavor or just enthusiasm. He clearly defines it as, you can read the third text of the Nectar of Instruction. He defines it as endeavor executed with intelligence in Krishna consciousness is called Utsaha or enthusiasm. Endeavor executed with intelligence. So, I've said this before. When the previous Pope assumed office, in one of his earliest statements, in his first few statements, he said something about the Hare Krishna movement. He said that the Hare Krishnas are mad monkeys jumping on the street, something to that effect. So, Prabhupada has saved us from this Sahajiyism. Not Sahajiyism of chanting is good. I'm going to say that acting without intelligence. We know exactly why we're chanting. We know exactly the philosophy. So our endeavor is executed with intelligence. And Prabhupada says executing with intelligence means we know what is to be used in the service of the Lord. So we have the latest microphone, use it in the service of the Lord. Otherwise, we may develop the conception chanting alone is enough. What is all this modern gadgets? We should just speak the Bhagavatam, just like Parikshit Maharaj heard from Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami definitely did not have a microphone. So we could assume that people had very good hearing power, and also being in a forest setting and everybody being attentive, they could hear it. So these kinds of false understanding can come into the picture when we are not guided through the medium of Prabhupada's books. That's why we have this slogan, which Prabhupada approved, in fact, that books are the basis. In fact, Prabhupada himself said that books are the basis. So everything in the Krishna consciousness movement, all the elements of our practice comes from our proper elements of Krishna consciousness, comes from a proper reading of Prabhupada's books. And there is a good book in this regard called Reading Reform. And I won't get into the entire book, but I'll quote a few things which I found were relevant to the verse that we are discussing about intelligence. So here is a letter that Prabhupada wrote to his disciple Paramananda, who was working in the farm. You should make effort to finish your 16 rounds whenever possible. As you are an important worker there and you have so many important duties, especially to take care of the cows, it may not be possible for you to stop your work for chanting 16 rounds. But as much as possible, you should try to fulfill the goal of 16 rounds daily. You should not fall too short of this goal. That will not be good. Similarly, you must read Bhagavad Gita at least a few verses every day and think about them throughout the day. The best is to read one chapter daily. But if you can meditate upon a few verses of Bhagavad Gita every day, that is better than reading for simply 1 hour and then forgetting the topics until the next reading. So we notice here that Prabhupada is especially speaking to a person who is very busy with the services. So Prabhupada is in fact saying you should try to finish 16 rounds. Of course, Prabhupada did say that the most important instruction of the spiritual master is to chant 16 rounds. But here you see an extraordinary circumstance where Prabhupada is even a bit, of course, we cannot use this for our circumstances. This is particularly for Paramananda Prabhu, July 29th, 1969. So we shouldn't use that. But the the point that Prabhupada is making here, we can understand one thing at least for sure, that even though he is recommending, you should not fall too much short of this goal. He is in one sense allowing for him, that will not be good. But he says similarly, you must read Bhagavad Gita, at least a few verses. So you can see, even for a busy worker like Paramananda Prabhu, Prabhupada is still saying you must read at least a few verses every day and meditate on it throughout the day, even when you're performing your service. So I would like to read a couple of more things to just bring out this point. This is letter to Hamsaduta, June 22nd, 1972. I want you leaders especially to become absorbed in the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and become yourselves completely convinced and free from all doubt. On this platform, you should be able to carry on work satisfactorily. But if there is lack of knowledge or if there is forgetfulness, everything will be spoiled in time. So especially everything will be spoiled in time if we do not do this work. Okay? So especially we must encourage the students to read our books throughout the day as much as possible and give them all good advice how to understand the books and inspire them to study the things from every point of view. Better to boil the milk very vigorously and make it thick and sweet. That is the best progress. So let us concentrate on training our devotees very thoroughly in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness from our books, from tapes, by discussing always, and in so many ways instruct them in the right propositions. And Prabhupada also wrote a similar letter to Giriraj Maharaj, exactly the same point. I won't read that here, but you can look it up in the Veda base. There's another quote. This is from letter to Satyabhama, February 28, 1972. You are experiencing some doubts that you cannot believe that Krishna from Krishna book can be the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that it must be like some fairy tale. To clear up these things, the best remedy should be discussed among yourselves and all members regularly, all our books and classes. Then these doubts will be killed. Without reading books, it becomes hackneyed and such obnoxious ideas trouble us. Our thoughts are always changing. That is the nature of the mind. So you cannot expect that even great saintly persons are free from thoughts coming and going. But after thinking, there is feeling and willing. Willing being the stage of putting the thoughts into action. So if we are able to employ our intelligence, then we kill the thoughts before they manifest in activity. But because we are so much inclined to enjoy something unintelligently, we have to therefore sharpen our daily intelligence by reading and discussing and preaching to others. Reading, discussing, preaching. So 3 things Prabhupada is prescribing to, first of all, kill our doubts, before we kill our thoughts for enjoyment. So he says, before they manifest in activity, we should kill them. How? By daily reading and discussing and preaching to others. In this way, we are able to very easily defeat all challenges to our philosophy. And everything becomes clear as it is revealed from different angles of vision. Krishna makes a promise to one who is striving to serve him sincerely that he will give such devotee the intelligence by which he may come to him. Therefore, we should always pray that Krishna kindly provide me the intelligence to kill all demons of doubt. And because he understands the heart of a sincere devotee, immediately he gives assistance. So, just like that's why it is said that reading Prabhupada's books is just not dry knowledge. We have to read it in a matter of submissive spirit. Like Prabhupada is giving us, first he tells us what to do. In this letter, he tells Satyabhama what to do, then how to do it. So Prabhupada is saying, so we should approach it with the manner, therefore we should pray that Krishna kindly provide me the intelligence. Otherwise, it is just some information. Academic scholars also can read, but they would read it from their point of view of academia. So then, the same words of Prabhupada, if they read, it's not going to have the same effect as when we read it with a submissive spirit. So therefore, Prabhupada is writing to Satyabhama, we should pray to Prabhupada sincerely. So when we pray to Krishna sincerely, and read his book, reads Prabhupada's books in a submissive spirit, then all the demons of doubt will be destroyed and we will be able to engage in intelligent activities. So I'll end by continuing the purport which I began earlier, 2:36. Prabhupada makes the very same point in that purport. He says, when the human being gives up the process of hearing, all about the when you say give up the process of hearing, it does not mean become a devotee, non-devotee. It could also mean that we are not regularly hearing. Because look at what Prabhupada says. When the human being gives up the process of hearing about the all-pervading personality of Godhead, he becomes victim to hearing rubbish transmitted by man-made machines. Which means the cinema songs, Prabhupada says in some places, the television, and he also speaks in the first canto about the crow-like literatures and propaganda. Machinery is not bad, but through the machine one can take advantage of hearing about the Lord. But because machinery is used for ulterior purposes, it is creating rapid degradation in the standard of human civilization. It is said here that it is incumbent upon the human beings to hear because the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are made for that purpose. Living beings other than human beings have no ability to hear such Vedic literatures. That is what is mentioned in this purport. The animals, they are also directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada said instinct. What is this instinct? It's not some blind thing. It is the direction of Krishna as a super soul for them to fulfill their activities. But as Prabhupada mentions, living beings other than the human beings have no ability to hear such Vedic literatures. So the kind of direction that they can receive from Krishna as a super soul is limited. But whereas we can receive higher direction. If human society gives itself to the process of hearing the Vedic literature, it will not become a victim to the impious sounds vibrated by impious men who degrade the standards of the total society. Hearing is solidified by the process of chanting. It's not the other way around. Prabhupada is not saying chanting is solidified by the process of hearing. He's saying hearing is solidified by the process of chanting. One who has perfectly heard from the perfect source becomes convinced about the all-pervading personality of Godhead and thus becomes enthusiastic in glorifying the Lord. So here it is again. The Prabhupada is saying when one hears and one becomes convinced and thus one becomes enthusiastic in glorifying the Lord. So this is the same definition of enthusiasm that Prabhupada gives in the Upadeshamrita, third verse, where he says, endeavor executed with intelligence in Krishna consciousness is called Utsaha. So same thing. So one hears about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Krishna says, one who hears the sacred conversation of mine is worshipping me with their intelligence. So when one hears about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one becomes enthusiastic in glorifying the Lord. So that is the right endeavor. That's called Utsaha. So I think this verse, I began by saying that what is the connection of this verse with Krishna, with the previous verses? There is a definite connection that we have to depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and hearing the instructions from bona fide sources like Bhagavatam, and through explained through the purports of Prabhupada and the Acharyas, then we can get the intelligence to endeavor execute with intelligence is called enthusiasm. So then we become enthusiastic how to execute ideal family life. Not only ideal family life, but it is specifically mentioned here also because this is an essential component. Without receiving such intelligence, one cannot execute ideal family life. Okay. So I think I'll stop here. It is necessary for every form of life, not just ideal family life. This is a general principle. So I think I'll stop here if there are any comments or questions. Okay, there's one thing which I wanted to address, that sometimes we hear that reading Prabhupada's books is jnana. But it's not. It is still, because we are not, this is not jnana as it's defined, as it's that we reject. It is Bhagavad jnana. So what is the effect of hearing? Effect of hearing means, Prabhupada said you should be able to endeavor with intelligence. You should be able to endeavor. It is not that we read, and hearing should be always followed by chanting and all the other practices of bhakti. So the whole process of bhakti, all process of hearing should generate what comes after, chanting and everything else. And unless it is generating that, then we know that if it is not generating that, then we know that something is wrong. We are not reading properly. We are not reading with a submissive spirit. Because the moment you do that, read with a submissive spirit, then automatically these activities will follow. Therefore, Prabhupada says, hearing is the most important of all the functions of Bhakti Yoga. So I think I'll stop there if there are any comments or questions. Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Yes. Okay. So this is a very important point that you brought up. First of all, Prabhupada did wanted every temple to have this system of Bhakti Shastri, and if not every temple, at least that system should be institutionalized within ISKCON, so that people have that facility to come and study the Bhakti Shastras especially. So so then the question comes up, what about those who do not have that facility? So it's difficult. Just like Prabhupada said, when businessmen join together, it's very easy for them to do business. So when devotees who are studying come together, it's very easy to study. So similarly, so it becomes a little difficult that to study when there are not enough devotees who are enthusiastic about studying. Nevertheless, Prabhupada did say, like, you know that, I'm sure you may be aware of it, that when one disciple told him that I find it difficult to offer obeisances. So then he said, by offering obeisances, you will continue to offer obeisances. So like that, just like we take chanting mandatorily. So if we consider that reading is also mandatory, then it becomes a daily practice. So eventually one develops a taste for it, just like chanting. Then whether there are devotees around or not, at least one would start doing it. As Prabhupada said, if there is nobody, just preach to others and make them also enthusiastic about doing the same activity. So ultimately, if there is nobody, then we can ourselves be enthusiastic and spread that enthusiasm to others, and then gradually, develop that culture of reading. In fact, I heard that there is a proposal that in future years we may also have a reading mela in Mayapur. We have a Kirtan mela. We may also have a reading mela in Mayapur. We have Kirtan mela, Shravan Utsav, and now I heard there is a proposal like that from reliable sources. So I think that's also a very good idea. And I think that especially post Prabhupada era, post 1977, it cannot be stressed enough, because for the next 10,000 years, if Prabhupada's books are to be the law books for humanity, we have to be very focused about training people in this philosophy very clearly. I remember the days in which I joined Krishna consciousness movement, we only had Prabhupada's books, more or less, a few other books. So that is a very different era than the times in which we are living now. So to summarize in one sentence, I would say that the current times that we are living in is like a Kumbh Mela of Krishna conscious philosophy. We don't know what is coming from where. You have so many ideas, some coming from the self-help group. Our devotees have gone there and they're pushing some ideas from here, pushing some ideas from there. So it's some kind of literally it's some kind of a Kumbh Mela. That's been my experience. So then it becomes all the more important that if we have to retain Prabhupada's teachings in its actual form, then devotees have to be dedicated to studying his books, discussing it, and also preaching about the importance of because these books are the basis. If we are to remain pure, as Prabhupada said, purity is the force. If you have to have that effective force, like in my last class I was mentioning that during the times of Prabhupada would, when people would criticize Prabhupada, God brothers especially, that these Westerners, they don't know this, or they don't do this properly, they don't know that. Prabhupada said, they know only one thing, which is they know only my instructions. They don't know anything other than my instructions. And that was the secret of the success of the Krishna consciousness movement. Just like Prabhupada, when he said he was inspired by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's comment on the Vyavasayatmika verse, which says one should take the order of the spiritual masters one's heart and soul. So that was the spirit in which the Krishna consciousness movement was established and spread. Effectively. So if we have to remain effective in that manner, that is the model. Prabhupada himself said it, that these disciples, they don't know anything other than my books. Of course, it does not mean that they're ignorant, but he was trying to make the point that whatever I say, he said that, whatever I say they do. And this is their greatest qualification. So it is not that whatever Prabhupada says we do, and we also do a few things that is said by the self-help gurus. We also do a few things said by the astrologers, a few things said by our parents, by our family, by all kinds of people. But rather we just do whatever is prescribed by Prabhupada, and we remain within the boundaries of his teachings. And for that, we have to be very dedicated to studying his books very carefully. Yeah. Yes, he said, I'll live forever in my books. Also, Giriraj Maharaj, when Prabhupada called Giriraj Maharaj and asked, how will this movement go on? And he said, if devotees are sincere and they chant nicely, something to that effect. He said, no, you also need intelligence and organization. So intelligence is one thing. Intelligence means to discriminate what is right and wrong. You're never going to get it unless we read Prabhupada's books. So we have to have that, because Prabhupada himself said it, this movement will go on, only if we have discrimination, organization. The second thing is organization. If you have proper intelligence, you would also know how to organize. Because you cannot know how to organize well if you do not know, if you are not properly intelligent. So that's why Prabhupada said intelligence and organization. Yes.
You know, I especially noticed that I'm working with His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami with Om Shri Surabi campaign and the Daiva Varnashram ministry. And, you know, before I heard him speak about Daiva Varnashram, I was, like most devotees even now, are very confused what that means and the importance of establishing the Vrindavan villages, the making Vrindavan villages, the 50% that Prabhupada wanted us to do. And I realized that Bhakti Raghava Swami has delved very deeply into Prabhupada's books and his quotes, practically more than anyone I've heard. And he understands it so nicely because I didn't even know that Prabhupada was writing about these things back in 1949 and 1956. It's like a strategic plan on how the Sankirtan movement will spread all over the world. It's part of the Sankirtan mission, and Prabhupada said, do this immediately 40 years plus ago, and we haven't done it. We have over 600 temples and less than 60 self-sufficient farms, and how many are self-sufficient. So reading Prabhupada's books is so important, and the deeper we enter them, the more we'll understand all of Prabhupada's instructions.
Yes, since you brought up the topic of Varnashram, I think the Prabhupada, especially on a topic like Varnashram, Prabhupada's instructions are very relevant because people can have various conceptions of what it means. But Prabhupada very clearly mentions it is not about, for example, when he speaks about training Kshatriyas, there is a specific question. Should they be trained in bow and arrows? And Prabhupada says, no, what is this? That's another foolishness, Prabhupada says. Use the guns, he says, you know. So, Prabhupada's whole idea was, in fact, Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, in an article, I think it's titled Towards Varnashrama, where he documents the history of Prabhupada's teachings in regard to Varnashram. Initially, Prabhupada said Varnashram is external, just focus on Kevala Bhakti. You can clearly see that. I mean, and then you can see when Prabhupada actually begins to speak about Varnashram in more and more detail, when devotees start falling down, especially sannyasis. You can clearly see that Prabhupada say, when somebody asks him this question, why do we need Prabhupada? Because they are falling down. So Prabhupada conceived of Varnashram as the means for devotees to practice Krishna consciousness in an environment which is least disturbing. So it is not the traditional concept of Varnashram where it is not some kind of an imitation Varnashram where we do everything in the traditional manner. We do things as eco-friendly as possible. Somebody could say gun is not eco-friendly. So Prabhupada is not really worried about, I mean, of course he wanted to keep things simple. And, I mean, of course in the initial days there's also a letter. Recently somebody sent me, somebody is asking Prabhupada about the machines in the farm, you know. And we would think, Prabhupada, what is this machines in a farm? It looks like an oxymoron, machines and farm machines. So, but Prabhupada says that, look, if it is too much endeavor to do the farming and things like that, you just sell milk, just have cows, have milk, make nice ghee, sell it in the cities, and that will bring enough money. He says that. Of course, sell it to our restaurants also. He says devotees, sell it to the devotee restaurants and things like that. But, I mean, Prabhupada was not very much hard and fast about these details. But he wanted to keep life simple because modern society is so highly competitive with so much distractions. So he felt that if devotees could have a more simpler lifestyle, it would save more of their energy for advancing in Krishna consciousness. So that's that idea you get only when we read Prabhupada's books. We clearly see how throughout Prabhupada is laying that emphasis. In fact, he says there's no such thing as a Shudra Vaishnava, Brahmana Vaishnava, no such thing. It's only something called Vaishnava. They may be performing different types of activities according to their nature, but still they are considered to be Vaishnava. He is not happy with the term Shudra Vaishnava. He very clearly clarifies these kind of things. So to understand the mind of the Acharya, we have to really especially studies Bhagavatam, where he clearly brings out what should be our consciousness very clearly, and then we are in a platform to implement it properly. Otherwise, even Varnashrama is a very big topic with all kinds of ideas. I mean, but it is important because Prabhupada did say that it is important because As time passes, it's very important. Yes.
Just like with the TOVP, devotees can argue ad infinitum, whether the earth is round or flatter. Go to the Bhagavatam. Shastra and Sanatan Dharma means laws laid down by Krishna and the Acharyas, no one else. So we don't have to speculate about any subject matter.
Yes.
It's all in Prabhupada's books.
Yes. Especially in India, they have so many conceptions of Varnashram. And so we have to be careful to take it from Prabhupada's books. Yes, bro. Well, I am not a member of any managerial body here, but I do know that there are various endeavors in that direction. So I'm not in a position to give you all the details of the endeavors and also at what stage they are. But I definitely do know. In fact, you have the Daivi Varnashram Ministries office located right here in Mayapur. So that's more of a managerial issue, how do you implement it. But I'm sure that everybody is convinced about its importance. How you're going to implement it. In fact, in the master plan, there are various grades of detail about it, which I'm not very familiar with, but it is definitely something that is there in the works. Yes, Prabhu. It's 9 o'clock. For those who would like to go, can please leave. Others who would want to ask questions, I'm fine to stay back.
Thank you very much for your wonderful class, Prabhu. I have this question. It says in the translation that the super soul in every body gives intelligence to the individual soul,
yes,
according to its capacity of understanding.
Yes.
So sometimes when a devotee, when he comes to Krishna consciousness initially, there are things which he cannot understand, like stuff like the sun moves around the earth is at the center and the sun moves around the earth. It says in the Bhagavatam, which is for new devotees difficult to understand. So how can you increase the capacity?
Well, I think, I'll bring out a very important principle. You read the verse right now and you interpret it in a certain manner. Does Prabhupada do that in the purport? He's not referring to this guy. What he's referring to is capacity for understanding here is referring to, he says, different categories of demigod, human, animal, bird, etc. Okay? So, in general, it is referring to their capacity. So, here Prabhupada is saying all human beings have the capacity to understand spiritual life. Okay? So, it is not that one human being has more capacity, another being has less capacity. All human beings have the same capacity for spiritual knowledge. So, it is not talking about capacities within human beings. It is talking about inter-animal, that kind of different capacities. So, within human beings, how do you understand these things? By having faith in scripture. Just like Prabhupada, he said, I am not an expert on cosmology. Right? But at the same time, when Prabhupada has shown the clips of the astronauts landing on moon, Prabhupada simply dismissed it, said this is not the moon. And in fact, one of the secretaries left Prabhupada. He actually left Prabhupada. In fact, there is one very humorous pastime that Purushottam Prabhu was the one who was very disturbed with that thing. So then he was with Prabhupada, and then I don't know the exact thing was the two Matajis were cooking in the kitchen. Either two Matajis were cooking or Purushottam Prabhu was cooking. And then I think the Matajis were cooking. I'll check it up. So and then the chapati gets burnt. Or something happens and there's a fire in the kitchen. It's kind of a fire. And then Purushottam goes there to help them to extinguish the fire. And then he comes back, all of them come back to Prabhupada. And they're all covered with soot, black soot all over the place. And then, sorry, I think it's Purushottam who was cooking yes, correct. It's Purushottam who was cooking the chapatis. And then the ladies, when they come into the room, they look at Purushottam and ask him, what happened? And Prabhupada says, today our Purushottam has gone to the moon. So Prabhupada had a very unique sense of humor. So even during that time, Prabhupada was very insistent that no, they have not gone to the moon because moon is a higher planetary system. So it is not possible for us to go to the moon. So how did Prabhupada did say that I don't know about all the details of planetary systems or distance. I mean, he said I'm not an expert on that, but he had faith that the Bhagavatam says that because that's a material subject matter ultimately, that's material cosmos. So he said, but I have faith that what the Bhagavatam says cannot be true, cannot be false. So therefore, he said, they have not gone to the moon. And subsequently, over the years, a lot of literature has come out by some of them from scientists themselves or others who are involved, that there are several problems with the moon landing. Have you read some of those? Okay, you've read them. Yeah. Yeah. So it is not necessary that you have to have a capacity to understand. I mean, because you have a capacity to understand spiritual life. Okay? So, whatever is needed for it, Krishna will provide. Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. So the capacity refers to the capacity of human beings to understand spiritual life. So we just have to have the eagerness, that's all. The spontaneous willingness. Yes, that's it. Lord Chaitanya has come to give us. We just have to take it. That's it. Just take it. Immediately, as Krishna wills, so it will be revealed. That's it. It's not about capacity there. Krishna, all human beings have the same capacity. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitya Gaur Premanand.